The crystal chandelier above my head caught the afternoon light, scattering rainbow fragments across the marble floor I'd been scrubbing for the past 20 minutes. My knees ached against the cold stone, and the sharp scent of lemon cleaner burned my nostrils with each breath. I pushed a strand of dark hair behind my ear, leaving a damp streak across my temple, and sat back on my heels to survey my work. This was my life now. 23 years old, on my hands and knees in someone else's palace, invisible to everyone who mattered. The Castellano mansion sprawled across 5 acres of pristine Connecticut waterfront, all white columns and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Long Island Sound. I'd been working here for 3 weeks, one of a rotating staff of maids who kept this monument to wealth gleaming. The pay was extraordinary, triple what I'd made at the hotel. But there was something unsettling about the place. The way doors locked from the inside, the security cameras in every corner, the men in dark suits who appeared and disappeared like shadows, speaking in low voices that stopped abruptly when I entered a room. I gathered my supplies, my cotton uniform clinging to my back with perspiration. Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper, had assigned me to the 3rd floor today, the private wing. "We rarely cleaned up here. Mr. Castellano valued his privacy," she'd said, her thin lips pressed into a warning line. The hallway stretched before me, silent except for the whisper of my rubber-soled shoes against the runner carpet. Portraits lined the walls, stern-faced men in expensive suits, their eyes following my movement. At the end of the corridor, a door stood slightly ajar, warm light spilling through the gap. I shouldn't. I knew I shouldn't. But something pulled me forward, a magnetic curiosity I couldn't name. My fingertips touched the heavy wood, and the door swung open with a hushed whisper. The study took my breath away. Dark mahogany panels climbed the walls, lined with leather-bound books that smelled of aged paper and tobacco. A massive desk dominated the center, its surface cluttered with papers, a crystal decanter of amber liquid, and an open laptop casting a blue glow. But it wasn't the opulence that froze me in place. It was the photograph, silver-framed, positioned on the corner of the desk where someone would see it every day. My hand flew to my mouth, a strangled sound escaping my throat. My mother's face stared back at me. Not a recent photo. This was from years ago, maybe 25 years. She looked impossibly young, her dark hair falling in waves around her shoulders, her smile radiant and unguarded in a way I'd never seen. She wore an emerald dress I didn't recognize, and her hand rested on the arm of a chair, a delicate gold bracelet catching the light. The same bracelet now locked in my jewelry box at home, the only thing of value she'd left me when she died 6 months ago. My heart hammered against my ribs. The room spun slightly, and I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. Why would my mother's photograph be here, in the private study of one of the most dangerous men on the East Coast? Because I knew who lived here. Everyone knew. Domenico Castellano, the name whispered with fear in certain circles, the man whose business dealings existed in shadows, and whose word could end careers, or lives. The newspapers called him a businessman and philanthropist, but the truth lived in the careful way people avoided saying his name, in the deference he commanded, in the violence that seemed to orbit him like a dark star. "You shouldn't be here." The voice came from behind me, low and rough as gravel, carrying an accent that softened the edges of each word. Italian, I thought distantly, even as my entire body went rigid with terror. I spun around, my hip colliding painfully with the desk corner. He stood in the doorway, filling the frame with his presence, tall, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders straining against a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Dark hair swept back from a face carved from granite, all sharp angles and hard lines. But it was his eyes that paralyzed me. Deep brown, almost black, they held an intensity that felt like physical weight, pressing against my chest until I couldn't breathe. This was him, Domenico Castellano. I'd glimpsed him twice before, always from a distance, always surrounded by an entourage that moved like a single organism. Up close, he was more than I'd imagined. More dangerous, more magnetic, more utterly terrifying. My voice came out as a whisper. I cleared my throat, tried again. I'm so sorry, Mr. Castellano. I was cleaning and the door was open and You're new. It wasn't a question. He moved into the room with predatory grace, each step deliberate. The scent of him reached me, expensive cologne, something dark and woody with notes of bergamot, underlaid with cigar smoke and danger. What's your name? Elena. My name felt foreign on my tongue. Elena Morrison. I've been here 3 weeks. I'm so sorry, I'll go. I didn't mean to. Look at me. The command stopped my babbling. I forced my gaze up from the floor, meeting those obsidian eyes. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, recognition, something I couldn't name. His jaw tightened, and he took another step closer, too close. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the faint scar running through his left eyebrow, could count the specks of gold in his dark irises. My back pressed against the desk, nowhere left to retreat. Elena Morrison, he repeated slowly, tasting each syllable. His gaze traveled over my face with an intensity that felt invasive, cataloging every feature. How old are you? 23. The answer came automatically, even as my mind screamed that I should run, should leave, should never have entered this room. Sir, I really should. Your mother. His eyes flicked to the photograph behind me, then back to my face. What was her name? The question knocked the air from my lungs. How did he know? How could he possibly know? Why do you? I couldn't form complete thoughts. My fingers found the edge of the desk, gripping so hard my knuckles went white. Her name was Catherine Morrison. She died 6 months ago. Something dangerous crossed his expression. Pain, maybe, or rage. Emotions too raw and complex to untangle. He reached past me and I flinched, but he only picked up the photograph, his thumb tracing the silver frame with surprising gentleness. Caterina, he murmured, using the Italian version of her name. She never told you about me. It wasn't a question, but I shook my head anyway. My mother had been fiercely private about her past, deflecting questions with vague answers and sad smiles. I knew she'd immigrated from Italy when she was young, that she'd worked as a nurse until the cancer made it impossible, that she'd raised me alone. But the details, the names, the reasons, the father I'd never known, those had died with her. Who are you? I whispered. Why do you have her picture? How did you know her? Domenico set the frame down carefully, his movements controlled with the precision of someone who'd learned to cage violence. When he looked at me again, something had shifted in his expression. Calculation mixed with something softer, more dangerous. You have her eyes, he said quietly. The same shape, the same defiance hiding behind the fear. He tilted his head, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. You're working as a maid, living where? I don't see how that's... Answer the question, Elena. The steel returned to his voice, and I remembered who I was talking to. Not a man who accepted refusal, not someone who asked twice. A studio in Bridgeport, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. Above a laundromat. I work 3 jobs to make rent, and I still don't understand why. A knock interrupted me. Sharp, efficient. A man appeared in the doorway, one of the shadows I'd seen before. Tall and bulky in a suit that couldn't quite hide the weapon beneath his jacket. Boss, you have a call. It's urgent. Domenico's expression hardened, the brief moment of vulnerability vanishing behind a mask of cold authority. He didn't look away from me as he spoke. Marco, I want a full background check on Elena Morrison. Everything. Where she lives, where she works, her finances, her friends, everything. And I want it within the hour. Terror spiked through me. What? No, you can't. Mrs. Chen will move you to the East Wing quarters tonight, he continued, speaking over my protests. You'll live here now. Your belongings will be collected. I'm not living here. The words burst out before I could stop them. You can't just decide that. I have a life. You have nothing. His voice was flat, final. 3 jobs to afford a studio above a laundromat. No family, no security. Your mother's medical bills have destroyed your credit. You're drowning, Elena, and you're too proud to admit it. Each word landed like a blow because they were true. All of it. Devastatingly true, but the way he said it, the casual dissection of my life, ignited something hot and desperate in my chest. So what? I demanded, my voice shaking with rage and fear and something else I couldn't name. You're going to what? Keep me here? Like some kind of prisoner? Because you knew my mother 20 years ago? Yes. Simple, direct. Terrifying in its honesty. You're insane. Perhaps. He moved closer again, and this time I had nowhere to go, trapped between his body and the desk. He was so close I could see the faint stubble along his jaw, could feel his breath against my forehead. But you're going to stay anyway, because you want to know the truth, because that photograph has haunted you since the moment you saw it, because despite your fear, you need answers more than you need freedom. He was right. God help me, he was right. The question burned in my throat, demanding release. Who was she to you? I whispered. Who was my mother to you? Domenico's hand rose slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. Couldn't. His fingers touched my chin, tilting my face up to the light. His expression was unreadable, ancient grief mixing with something possessive and fierce. She was mine, he said softly, each word wrapped in ownership and old pain. 24 years ago, Katerina was mine, and if what I suspect is true. His thumb traced my jawline, a touch that felt like both a caress and a claim. Then so are you. The implication crashed over me like ice water. The timeline aligned with horrible precision. 24 years ago, my age, my mother's secrets. No, I breathed, but there was no conviction in the word. We'll know soon enough. He stepped back, releasing me from the magnetic pull of his proximity. Marco will show you to your room. You'll stay there until I send for you. Don't try to leave, Elena. The gates are coded, the guards have your description, and running will only make this harder. You can't do this. But even as I said it, I knew he could. He was Domenico Castellano, a man who existed above laws and consequences. This is kidnapping. It's illegal. I could call the police. And tell them what? His smile was cold, empty of humor. That your employer has offered you luxury accommodations, that he's concerned for your safety, that he's taken an interest in the daughter of an old friend? He adjusted his cuffs, dismissing me with the gesture. No one will believe you. And even if they did, no one would help you. Not against me. The truth of it settled in my stomach like lead. He was right. I was nothing, a maid, poor, alone. Who would challenge a man like him for someone like me? Marco appeared at my elbow, his grip firm but not painful on my arm. This way, miss. I let him guide me from the room, my legs moving automatically while my mind spun in desperate circles. At the doorway, I looked back. Domenico stood at his desk, the photograph of my mother in his hands, his expression raw with an emotion I couldn't name. In that moment, he didn't look like a monster or a criminal kingpin. He looked like a man who'd lost something precious and just found a ghost wearing her face. The door closed between us with a soft click, and I wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life by walking into that study, or if my mother had made it 24 years ago when she'd fallen in love with the devil himself. The room they gave me was a gilded cage. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the sound, the water dark and restless under the evening sky. A four-poster bed dominated the space, dressed in cream silk that probably cost more than everything I owned, an ensuite bathroom with marble counters and a tub deep enough to drown in. A walk-in closet already filled with clothes, my size I noticed with creeping dread, still bearing designer tags. I stood at the window, my reflection a pale ghost in the darkening glass. Behind me, 2 suitcases sat on the bench at the foot of the bed. My entire life, packed by strangers and delivered like a package. The violation of it made my skin crawl. The door had no lock on the inside. I'd checked 3 times, my fingers trembling as they traced the smooth wood, searching for a mechanism that didn't exist. I was locked in. Not with bars and chains, but with luxury, and the implicit threat of what would happen if I tried to leave. The sun had set an hour ago. No one had come. No explanations, no food. Nothing but the oppressive silence of the mansion settling around me like a shroud. I should be terrified. I was terrified. but underneath the fear, something else writhed, a desperate, aching need to understand. The photograph burned in my memory. My mother's young face, radiant with a happiness I'd never witnessed. The way Domenico had looked at it, at me, with that complex mixture of grief and possession. She was mine. The words echoed in my skull. What did that mean? Had they been lovers? More? And if the timeline was what I suspected, if Domenico Castellano was somehow connected to my existence, why had my mother run? Why had she never told me? Why had she worked herself to death in a profession that barely paid rent when apparently there was this? A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Miss Morrison? A woman's voice, accented and professional. May I come in? As if I had a choice. Yes. The door opened to reveal an elegant woman in her 50s, silver threading through dark hair, pulled into a neat bun. She wore a simple black dress and carried herself with quiet authority. Not a maid, someone higher in the household hierarchy. I'm Lucia, she said, her smile gentle but cautious, as if approaching a skittish animal. I manage Mr. Castellano's household. I wanted to check if you needed anything. Dinner, perhaps? My stomach clenched at the mention of food, reminding me I hadn't eaten since my hurried breakfast 12 hours ago, but accepting felt like surrender, like acknowledging this nightmare as reality. I need to leave, I said instead, my voice steadier than I felt. This is wrong. He can't keep me here. Lucia's expression softened with something that might have been sympathy. She closed the door behind her and moved further into the room, her movements unhurried, non-threatening. I know this must be frightening, she said carefully, but Mr. Castellano isn't... He means you no harm, Miss Morrison. He's holding me prisoner. He's protecting you. She held up a hand when I opened my mouth to protest. I know how it seems, but I've worked for Domenico for 20 years. I knew your mother, Elena. I knew Caterina. The air left my lungs in a rush. You knew her? Lucia nodded, settling gracefully into the chair by the window, an invitation for me to sit on the bed. I remained standing, too wired to relax, but leaned against the bedpost for support. She worked here, Lucia said softly, 25 years ago, when this was just Domenico's father's house. Caterina was young, beautiful, full of life. She came from Sicily, barely spoke English. The old Mr. Castellano hired her as a maid, just as you were hired. My heart hammered. And Domenico? Was 26, being groomed to take over the family business. Lucia's eyes grew distant with memory. He wasn't supposed to fall in love with her. She was staff, poor, unsuitable. But love doesn't ask permission, does it? They were together? I needed to hear it confirmed, needed the pieces to align. For 6 months. Secret, passionate, dangerous. The old man would have killed them both if he'd known. Lucia's voice dropped. Not metaphorically, Elena, actually killed them. The Castellano family doesn't tolerate disobedience, especially not from the heir. There are rules, traditions. Marrying outside the organization, especially someone like Caterina, it was unthinkable. I sank onto the bed, my legs suddenly unable to support me. What happened? She disappeared. Lucia's hands twisted in her lap. One day she was here, and the next she was gone. No note, no goodbye. Domenico went insane looking for her. He tore apart the city, called in every favor, threatened everyone who might know something. But she'd vanished completely, like smoke. She ran. The words tasted bitter. She ran from him. We thought so. But maybe... Lucia looked at me meaningfully. Maybe she was running to something. Protecting something. The implication was clear. Protecting me. Protecting a pregnancy that would have gotten them both killed. He doesn't know, I whispered. Does he? He suspects. But he doesn't know for certain. Not until the DNA results come back. My head snapped up. DNA results? The glass you drank from in his study. Marco collected it. Lucia's expression was apologetic but firm. By tomorrow morning, Domenico will have confirmation one way or another. But Elena, I've seen the way he looked at you. He already knows. A father recognizes his own blood. The room spun. I pressed my palms against the silk bedspread, focusing on the texture, the coolness, anything to anchor me to reality. This couldn't be happening. My father was supposed to be a mistake, a one-night stand, someone my mother had never wanted to discuss. Not this. Not a mafia boss who could buy and sell lives, who commanded fear with a glance, who just locked me in a mansion like a princess in a fairy tale gone horribly wrong. I need to see him, I said suddenly. I need to talk to him, now. He's in a meeting. I don't care. I stood, surprised by the strength in my voice. He brought me here. He's keeping me here. The least he can do is face me. Lucia studied me for a long moment, and I saw approval flicker across her features. You have her fire, she said quietly. Katerina never backed down either, even when she should have. It's probably what made him fall in love with her. She rose gracefully. I'll see what I can do. But Elena, when you see him, be careful. He's not a man accustomed to being challenged. And right now, you're the embodiment of everything he lost and just found again. That makes you precious to him, but it also makes you dangerous to yourself. She left, the door closing with a soft click that might as well have been a prison cell slamming shut. I paced the room like a caged animal, adrenaline and fear warring in my veins. 20 minutes passed. 30. I was beginning to think Lucia had dismissed my demand when the door opened again. Not Lucia. Marco. The guard, or bodyguard, or whatever he was, who'd escorted me earlier. Up close, he was younger than I'd thought, maybe early 30s, with a scar bisecting his left cheek and eyes that had seen too much violence. Boss will see you, he said curtly. Follow me. The mansion at night was different from the bright, sterile space I'd cleaned during the day. Shadows pooled in corners, and the recessed lighting cast everything in amber and gold. We moved through corridors I didn't recognize, past rooms whose doors stood closed and mysterious, down a staircase that descended into what must have been the lower level. Music drifted up to meet us, classical, something Italian and operatic that spoke of tragedy and lost love. Marco stopped before a heavy door, knocked once, and pushed it open without waiting for a response. The room beyond stole my breath. A private wine cellar, but transformed into something intimate and almost sacred. Brick archways curved overhead, and wooden racks lined the walls, bottles organized with meticulous precision. A small seating area occupied the center. Leather chairs arranged around a low table where a chess game sat abandoned mid-play. Domenico stood with his back to us, staring at a painting mounted on the far wall. He'd removed his suit jacket, rolled his shirt sleeves to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. A glass of red wine dangled from his fingers, and the operatic music swelled from speakers hidden in the walls. Leave us, he said without turning. Marco hesitated, barely a second, but enough for me to notice. Then he withdrew, and the door closed with a finality that made my pulse spike. You wanted to see me. Domenico turned slowly, and the sight of him in this softer light, with his guard partially lowered, did something strange to my equilibrium. He looked tired, older than his 50 years, haunted by ghosts I was only beginning to understand. Or did Lucia misinterpret your demand? You can't keep me here. I forced the words out before fear could silence me. I'm not a possession. I'm not something you can just claim because of what you think might be true. What I know is true. He set his wine glass down with careful precision. The results won't change what I already understand. You're Katerina's daughter, and you're mine. I'm not yours. The words burst out, too loud in the intimate space. You're a stranger, a criminal, someone my mother ran from. Why would I want anything to do with you? Because I'm your father. The words hung between us, simple and devastating. Hearing him say it out loud with such certainty, such ownership, made it real in a way the implications hadn't. My knees weakened, and I grabbed the back of a chair for support. You don't know that, I whispered, but there was no conviction in it. Don't I? He moved closer, each step measured. You're 23. Katerina disappeared 24 years ago. 6 months after we started our affair. She was pregnant when she left. I see it now in every decision she made. Running. Hiding. Protecting you from me, from this life. His jaw clenched. She thought she was saving you. Instead, she condemned you both to poverty, to struggle, to her working herself to death because she was too proud or too frightened to tell me the truth. Maybe she had good reason to be frightened. I shot back. Look at this place. Look at what you are. You're not some legitimate businessman, Mr. Castellano. You're... Say it. His voice was soft, dangerous. Say what I am, Elena. A monster. The word came out barely above a whisper, but it landed like a gunshot. A criminal. Someone who hurts people. Someone who threatens and controls and destroys. My mother was right to run from you, and I should run too. I expected rage, violence. The monster I'd accused him of being. Instead, something broke in his expression. A crack in the armor that revealed raw, bleeding pain underneath. You're right, he said quietly, and the admission shocked me more than anger would have. I am all those things. I've built an empire on fear and blood. I've done things that would make you sick. I've hurt people, Elena, destroyed families, ended lives. He took another step closer, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. But I would have loved her. Katerina. I would have found a way. I would have fought my father, the organization, hell itself to keep her safe, to keep you both safe. You don't know that. But my voice shook, uncertainty creeping in. I've spent 24 years looking for her. His hand rose, and this time when he touched my face, it was achingly gentle, a reverence that contradicted everything I knew about him. Every woman I saw with dark hair, every glimpse of green eyes in a crowd, I thought it might be her. I've searched 3 continents, paid investigators fortunes, and never stopped hoping she'd come back. Do you understand? For 24 years, Elena, I've been half alive, and now you're here, her ghost made flesh, and you think I'll let you disappear like she did? His thumb traced my cheekbone, and traitorous tears spilled over, wetting his skin. I'm not my mother, I managed. I'm not her. No. His smile was sad, ancient. You're better. You're what we could have been. You're the piece of her that survived, that thrived despite everything. And I will protect that with everything I have, everything I am. Even if you hate me for it, even if you fight me every day. You're mine to protect now, Elena. Mine to keep safe. And nothing. Not your fear, not your anger, not your desire to run, will change that. The possession in his voice should have terrified me. It did terrify me. But underneath the fear, something else stirred. A desperate, aching need for the family I'd never had, for a father who looked at me like I was precious, for protection in a world that had been crushing me slowly for years. What do you want from me? I whispered. Everything. His answer was immediate, uncompromising. Your trust, your forgiveness, the chance to be what I should have been from the beginning. His other hand came up, cradling my face between his palms, and the tenderness of it broke something in my chest. Let me be your father, Elena. Let me give you the life Katerina wanted you to have, the safety, the security, the love you both deserved. A sob worked its way up my throat. Then we'll learn together. How. He pulled me forward, and I didn't resist when he wrapped his arms around me, drawing me against his chest. He smelled like expensive cologne and wine and something indefinably safe. His heart beat steady under my ear, and his hand stroked my hair with unpracticed gentleness. I'm sorry, he murmured against my crown, for everything she suffered, for everything you've suffered, for not finding you sooner. But you're here now, and I swear on everything holy and unholy, no one will ever hurt you again. I cried then, really cried, for my mother who'd died too young, for the father I'd never known, for the impossible situation I'd stumbled into. And Domenico held me through it all. This man who was simultaneously my savior and my captor, my father and my jailer. When the tears finally subsided, he pulled back just enough to look at me, his thumbs wiping the moisture from my cheeks. Tomorrow, he said softly, The results will confirm what we both know, and then we'll talk about your future, your education. You'll finish your degree, your safety. You'll have guards, protection, your life. It starts over, Elena, as my daughter, as a Castellano. The name landed like a brand, a Castellano. The weight of it, the danger of it, the power of it. What if I don't want that? I asked, even though we both knew the answer. Then you'll learn to want it. His smile was gentle but implacable. Because the alternative, going back to that studio, those 3 jobs, that life that was slowly killing you, that's not an option anymore, not for my daughter. He released me, stepping back, and the loss of his warmth felt like abandonment. Marco will take you back to your room. Get some rest. Tomorrow begins the rest of your life, I should have argued. Should have fought. But exhaustion crashed over me like a wave, and all I could do was nod and let Marco appear as if summoned, his hand gentle on my elbow as he guided me from the room. At the doorway, I looked back. Domenico had returned to the painting, his shoulders bowed under invisible weight. In the amber light, he looked less like a monster and more like a man who'd lost everything and just been given a second chance he didn't deserve, but would kill to keep. The door closed, and I wondered if I'd just accepted my fate, or if the real battle was only beginning. Morning arrived, with pale sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to cover. I woke disoriented, tangled in silk sheets that cost more than my monthly rent, in a room that smelled of luxury and captivity. For one blissful moment, I thought yesterday had been a nightmare. Then I saw the envelope on my nightstand. Heavy cream paper. My name written in bold, masculine script. My hands trembled as I opened it, already knowing what I'd find inside. The DNA results were clinical, impersonal, a series of numbers and percentages that added up to one devastating truth. Probability of paternity, 99.997%. Domenico Castellano was my father. I sat there for what might have been minutes or hours, staring at the paper until the numbers blurred. 23 years of wondering, of imagining, of building scenarios in my head about the man who'd given me life and then vanished. And the reality was so much more complicated, so much more dangerous than anything I'd conceived. A knock at the door made me jump. "Miss Morrison? May I come in?" Lucia's voice. I quickly folded the paper, tucking it under my pillow like evidence of a crime. Yes. She entered carrying a tray, coffee, pastries, fresh fruit arranged artfully on fine china. The scent made my stomach growl traitorously. She set it on the small table by the window, her movements efficient but kind. "Mr. Castellano asked me to inform you that he'd like you to join him for breakfast in an hour," she said, pouring coffee into a delicate cup. "He's had some clothes prepared for you. They're in the closet. I have clothes." I gestured to my suitcases, still unpacked on the floor. Lucia's smile was patient. "He'd prefer if you wore something from the selection he's provided. It would please him." The unspoken message was clear. This wasn't a request. I was expected to play the part, to dress up like a doll in the wardrobe my father, God, I still couldn't wrap my mind around that word, had chosen for me. "Fine," I muttered, hating how easily I surrendered. But what choice did I have? The results confirmed it. I was his daughter, his blood. And in his world, that seemed to mean I was his property. After Lucia left, I forced myself to eat, then approached the closet with growing dread. Inside hung dozens of outfits, casual wear, evening gowns, business attire, all in my size, all bearing designer labels I'd only seen in magazines. Shoes lined the bottom in neat rows. Accessories sparkled from velvet-lined drawers. I chose the simplest option I could find. Dark jeans, a cream cashmere sweater, leather ankle boots. Even these basics probably cost more than I'd made in a month of scrubbing floors. The irony wasn't lost on me. Yesterday I'd been on my hands and knees cleaning this mansion. Today I was dressing in clothes worth more than everything I owned. The transformation in the mirror was jarring. I looked expensive, put together. Like I belonged in this world of marble and crystal and old money soaked in blood. I looked like a Castellano. Marco appeared exactly an hour later, his expression unreadable as he escorted me through the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. We emerged onto a terrace I hadn't seen before, all white stone and wrought iron, overlooking manicured gardens that stretched toward the Sound. Morning light glittered off the water, almost beautiful enough to make me forget this was a prison. Domenico sat at a table set for two, reading something on his tablet. He dressed down, or what passed for dressed down in his world, in black slacks and a charcoal shirt, sleeves rolled to reveal those scarred forearms. He looked up as I approached, and something fierce and possessive flashed across his face before he schooled it into careful neutrality. "Elena." He stood, a gesture of old-world courtesy that felt absurd given the circumstances. "You look beautiful. The clothes fit well." "They should, considering you somehow knew my exact measurements." I sat without waiting for permission, a small rebellion that made his lips quirk almost imperceptibly. "I have excellent resources." He poured me coffee, black, no sugar, exactly how I took it. Another piece of information he shouldn't have known. "Did you receive the results?" "Yes." The word came out clipped. "Congratulations. It's a girl." His jaw tightened at my tone, but he didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he set down his cup with deliberate care, his gaze holding mine with uncomfortable intensity. "I want you to understand something," he said quietly. "Finding out you exist is the best thing that's happened to me in 24 years. But I know this isn't what you wanted. I know I'm not what you wanted. So I'm going to make you an offer." I waited, not trusting myself to speak. "Stay for 1 month. Let me prove to you that this life, this family can be good for you. Let me show you what I can provide: security, education, opportunities you've never had." He leaned forward slightly. "If, after 30 days, you still want to leave, I won't stop you. I'll set you up with an apartment, a trust fund, everything you need to live comfortably, and you'll never have to see me again, if that's what you choose." It was more than I'd expected, more than I'd dared hope for, but there was a catch. There was always a catch. "And if I say no, if I want to leave now," his expression hardened almost imperceptibly, "then I'll be forced to use other methods to ensure your safety. Methods you won't like. Threats?" I laughed bitterly. So much for this being my choice. "It is your choice." His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "But understand, Elena, there are people out there who would use you against me if they knew you existed. Rivals who would hurt you to hurt me, enemies who would see my daughter as the perfect leverage. Letting you walk out of here unprotected, unprepared, would be signing your death warrant. So yes, if you refuse to stay willingly, I'll keep you here by force, not to control you, but to keep you alive." The worst part was, I believed him. I'd heard enough whispers about the Castellano family, read enough between the lines in news articles to know that this world operated by different rules. Rules written in blood and enforced with violence. 1 month, I said finally, hating myself for agreeing, but seeing no other viable option. "But I want some conditions." Interest flickered in his dark eyes. "Such as?" "I want to go back to school. You mentioned finishing my degree. I want to enroll for the spring semester. Literature and creative writing. Done. I'll have my people contact whatever university you choose. And I want honest answers about my mother, about why she ran, about what you really do." I leaned forward, matching his intensity. "If I'm supposed to be part of this family, I need to understand what that means. All of it. Not pretty lies or sanitized versions." Something like respect crossed his features. "That's dangerous knowledge, Elena. I'm already in danger just by being here. You said so yourself, so I might as well understand why." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Fair enough, but not all at once. Some truths are better digested gradually." He picked up a small bell beside his plate and rang it once. Immediately, staff appeared with covered dishes, eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, pastries, enough food for 6 people. "First we eat. Then I have something to show you." The meal was surreal. Sitting across from my father, a man I'd known existed for less than 24 hours, eating food prepared by chefs I'd never see, while guards I couldn't see watched from hidden positions. Domenico asked me questions about my life, my mother, my dreams, and I found myself answering with a candor that surprised me. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the way he listened, really listened, as if every word I spoke was precious. When we finished, he stood and offered his hand. "Come. There's something you need to see." I hesitated, then placed my palm in his. His grip was warm, solid, strangely comforting. He led me back into the mansion, through corridors I was beginning to recognize, until we stopped before a door near his study. "I had this prepared last night," he said quietly, after I read the preliminary results. He opened the door. The room beyond stole my breath. It was a shrine to my mother. Photographs covered every wall. Some I recognized from the handful she'd kept, most I'd never seen. Caterina young and laughing, Caterina in a garden I didn't recognize. Caterina in Domenico's arms, their faces pressed together, radiantly happy. A dress hung in a glass case. The emerald one from the photo in his study, her belongings filled the space. Books, jewelry, a hairbrush, letters tied with ribbon. 24 years of preserved memory. 24 years of a man unable to let go. How? My voice was barely a whisper. How did you keep all this? I never threw anything away. Domenico stood behind me, his presence a solid warmth at my back. Everything she touched, everything she left behind when she ran. I kept it all. Lucia thought I was torturing myself. Maybe I was. But I couldn't let her go completely. These objects were all I had left of her. I moved deeper into the room, drawn to a particular photograph. My mother pregnant, her hand cradling a small bump, her smile secret and tender. Me. She'd been carrying me. "She looks happy," I said, touching the frame gently. "Did she know? When she left, did she know about me?" "I think so." Domenico's voice was rough with old pain. "The timeline suggests she was already pregnant, which means she made the choice to leave, to protect you, knowing she'd be raising you alone. Knowing I'd look for her, knowing she'd have to hide forever." "Why didn't she tell you?" The question had haunted me since yesterday. "If she loved you, if you loved her, why not give you the choice? Because she knew what that choice would cost." He moved to stand beside me, his gaze fixed on the photograph. "My father was preparing to announce my engagement to Valentina Russo, a union between two powerful families. It would have cemented our position, expanded our territory, if I'd refused, if I'd chosen Caterina instead. My father would have killed her. Not quickly, not mercifully. He would have made an example of her, of what happens when someone threatens the family's interests. Ice crystallized in my veins. He would have killed his own grandchild? He wouldn't have seen you as his grandchild. He would have seen you as evidence of disobedience, a stain on the family name." Domenico's hand clenched into a fist. Caterina understood that better than I did at the time. She was smarter than both of us. So she ran, and she hid, and she kept you safe the only way she knew how. By sacrificing everything, the weight of it pressed down on me. My mother's endless shifts at the hospital, her refusal to accept help, her fierce independence that I'd always admired and sometimes resented. She'd been protecting me from a threat I'd never known existed. Yes. Domenico's hand touched my shoulder lightly. And now that responsibility falls to me, to give you what she couldn't, to protect you the way she did, but with the resources she lacked. I turned to face him, this stranger who was my father, this criminal who'd loved my mother enough to preserve her memory for over 2 decades. "Your father, is he dead?" 5 years ago. Something cold and satisfied flickered in his expression. Heart attack, or so the official report stated. The implication hung between us. I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt a savage satisfaction that the man who would have killed my mother was gone. What was happening to me? 24 hours in this world, and already I was thinking like them, feeling like them. "Elena." Domenico's hand came up, tilting my chin so I had to meet his eyes. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you're scared, confused, probably questioning everything you thought you knew about right and wrong, but I need you to understand something. In this family, we protect our own, above everything else, above laws, above morality, above our own lives if necessary. You're mine now, my daughter, my blood, and I will burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you." The vow should have terrified me. Instead, for the first time since my mother died, I felt safe. "I have one more question," I said quietly. "The engagement your father arranged, did you go through with it? Are you married?" No, his answer was immediate, definite. I refused. It cost me dearly. Relationships with allied families, territory, respect. My father made my life hell for years. But I wouldn't bind myself to someone else while Katerina was out there somewhere. I told myself I was waiting for her to come back. His smile was bitter. I just never imagined she wouldn't. She wanted to, I found myself saying, surprising us both. In the hospital near the end, she kept saying a name, Dom. I thought she was confused, that the morphine was making her hallucinate. But it was you, wasn't it? She was calling for you. Pain, raw and immediate, crossed his face. His hand dropped from my chin, and he turned away, his shoulders rigid with tension. She died thinking I'd abandoned her. I continued softly. Thinking you hadn't cared enough to find her. She never knew you'd spent 24 years searching. She never knew. Stop. The word cracked like a whip. Please, Elena, stop. I'd hurt him. This powerful, dangerous man who commanded fear with a glance. I'd found his weak point and struck true. The realization gave me a strange sense of power, but also an unexpected tenderness. She loved you, I said quietly. Until the very end. That's worth knowing, isn't it? He didn't answer for a long moment. When he finally turned back to me, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. The first crack in his armor I'd seen. Yes, he whispered. Yes, it is. A door slammed somewhere in the mansion, followed by raised voices. Domenico's expression shuddered immediately, the vulnerable man vanishing behind the mask of the Mafia boss. His hand went to the gun I'd just noticed holstered at his back. When had he armed himself? Marco burst through the door, his face grim. Boss, we have a situation. It's Victor Morozov. He's at the gate with 6 men, demanding an audience. Every muscle in Domenico's body went taut with lethal readiness. How the hell did he know to come here? Who talked? Unknown, sir, but he's asking about her. Marco's eyes flicked to me. He's asking about your daughter. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Domenico's hand closed around my wrist, his grip firm but not painful, pulling me behind him in an instinctively protective gesture. Get her to the safe room, he ordered Marco. Full security protocol. No one gets near her. No one. What's happening? Fear spiked through me. Who is Victor Morozov? Domenico looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something that might have been fear flickering in his dark eyes. Not for himself, for me. He's a rival, he said flatly. Someone who's been trying to take my territory for years, and if he knows about you, if word has gotten out that I have a daughter... He cupped my face, the tenderness at odds with the violence brewing in his expression. He'll use you against me. He'll hurt you to hurt me. Which means I need to end this threat. Permanently. You're going to kill him. It wasn't a question. Yes. No hesitation, no regret. And anyone who came with him, anyone who knows you exist, I won't let you become a target, Elena. I won't let what happened to your mother happen to you. Marco's hand closed around my arm. Miss Morrison, we need to go. Now. Wait. I pulled against his grip. My eyes locked on Domenico. Be careful. Please. Something softened in his expression, pressing a kiss to my forehead. The first paternal gesture he'd made, and it came on the brink of violence. Don't worry about me, figlia mia, he murmured against my skin. Worry about the man foolish enough to threaten my family. Then Marco was pulling me away, and the last thing I saw before the door closed was Domenico checking his weapon with practiced efficiency, transforming before my eyes, from father to predator. And I realized with crystal clarity, my 1 month might not matter, because in this world, danger didn't wait for you to decide if you wanted to stay. It found you anyway. The safe room was exactly what it sounded like, a windowless bunker buried in the mansion's basement, all reinforced steel and electronic locks that hissed shut behind us with terrifying finality. Emergency supplies lined metal shelves, water, food, medical kits, weapons. A bank of monitors covered one wall, displaying every angle of the property in grainy black and white. Marco positioned himself by the door, his weapon drawn, his body a human shield between me and any threat that might breach the room. 2 other guards, men whose names I didn't know, flanked the monitors, their attention fixed on the screens. And I could do nothing but watch. The monitors showed Domenico emerging from the mansion's front entrance, flanked by at least a dozen men in dark suits. Even through the grainy footage, his authority was palpable. The way he moved, the way his men positioned themselves around him in practiced formation. This was his domain, and he commanded it absolutely. At the gate, 6 figures waited. The man in front was tall, blonde, his posture radiating arrogance. Viktor Morozov, I assumed. Even at this distance, I could see the smirk on his face. "Can we hear them?" I asked, my voice too loud in the tense silence. One of the guards adjusted something on the console, and suddenly voices crackled through speakers. "Didn't think you'd actually come out, Castellano." Victor's accent was thick, Russian, mocking. "Thought you'd hide behind your walls like always." "You're on my property uninvited." Domenico's voice was ice. "You have 30 seconds to state your business before I have you removed." Permanently, Victor laughed, the sound grating. "I heard an interesting rumor about a girl. Young, pretty, living in your mansion. Not your usual type. No plastic surgery, no designer pedigree, almost like family." My blood turned to ice. How did he know? How could he possibly know? 20 seconds, Domenico said, ignoring the provocation. "I'm here to make an offer." Victor spread his hands in mock diplomacy. "You've been holding territory that should rightfully be mine. The ports, specifically. Sign them over and I'll forget I ever heard about this mysterious girl. I'll forget she exists. We'll call it even." The silence that followed was deadly. "You come to my home," Domenico said, his voice dropping to a register that made every hair on my body stand on end. "You threaten what's mine, and you think you'll walk away with anything but a bullet?" "I think you'll be reasonable," Victor countered. "Because if something were to happen to me, my associates have instructions. Photographs, addresses, daily routines. Everything about your new little pet. It would be a shame if that information fell into the wrong hands. So many people would pay well for leverage against the great Domenico Castellano." I couldn't breathe. This was my fault. My presence had made Domenico vulnerable. I was the weakness Victor was exploiting. On the screen, Domenico went perfectly still, that absolute, predatory stillness that preceded violence. "Marco," he said quietly, and even through the speakers, the command was clear. What happened next was too fast to fully process. Domenico's men moved as one, weapons appearing from beneath jackets. Victor's men reached for their own guns, but they were too slow, too confident in their leader's protection. The first shot echoed like thunder. I flinched, pressing my hands over my mouth to trap the scream trying to escape. On the monitors, chaos erupted. Bodies fell. Blood spray painted the pristine driveway. Victor tried to run, but one of Domenico's men, a giant of a man with cold precision, shot him in the leg, dropping him to the ground. It was over in less than 30 seconds. 6 men had arrived. 5 lay dead or dying. Victor writhed on the ground, clutching his shattered leg, his arrogance dissolved into animal terror. Domenico approached him slowly, deliberately. He crouched beside Victor, and even without seeing his face clearly, I could imagine the expression, cold, merciless, absolutely certain. He pressed his gun against Victor's temple. "Wait." Victor's voice was high with panic. "Wait, please, I have information. I can tell you who—" The gunshot cut off his pleading. I turned away from the monitors, bile rising in my throat. I just watched my father execute a man. 6 men, dead in seconds, and Domenico had ordered it without hesitation. This was his world. This was what he did. This was what I was now part of. "Miss Morrison." Marco's voice was carefully neutral. "You should sit down. He just killed them." My voice sounded distant, shocked. "All of them." "He protected you," Marco corrected firmly. "Viktor Morozov was a threat. He had information that could have gotten you killed. The boss eliminated that threat. It's what he does. It's what keeps this family safe." I wanted to argue, to rage against the casual violence, the cold justification. But what was the alternative? Let Victor live. Let him spread information about me. Let me become a target for every rival family looking for leverage. My mother had understood this. She'd run from this exact scenario, knowing that being connected to Domenico meant living in a world where violence was currency and death was negotiation. The door's locks disengaged with a mechanical hiss. I spun around as Domenico entered, and the sight of him stopped my breath. Blood spattered his shirt and face. Not his own, I realized with queasy relief. His expression was hard, closed. The vulnerable father from earlier completely submerged beneath the killer who'd just eliminated 6 men. His eyes found mine immediately, scanning me with clinical efficiency. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. "Good." He turned to Marco. "Clean up the mess. Dispose of the bodies where they won't be found. Check every phone, every device. I want to know who leaked information about Elena and how far it spread. And double the security. No one enters these grounds without my personal authorization." "Yes, sir." Marco and the other guards filed out efficiently, leaving us alone in the steel-reinforced room. The silence stretched between us, heavy with things unsaid. "You're afraid of me now." Domenico's voice was flat, accepting. He made no move to approach, maintaining distance like I was a wild animal that might bolt. "Shouldn't I be?" The words came out sharper than intended. "You just killed 6 people. Just executed them like it was nothing." It wasn't nothing. He moved slowly to one of the chairs, sitting heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 50 years. "Every life I take weighs on me, Elena. But their lives weighed less than yours. That's the calculation. That's the choice I make every time." There had to be another way. There wasn't. His eyes met mine, unflinching. "Victor knew about you. His men knew about you. If I'd let them live, that information would have spread. By tomorrow, every rival family from here to Sicily would know Domenico Castellano has a daughter. They'd be planning how to use you, how to hurt you, how to leverage you. I couldn't allow that." I sank into a chair across from him, my legs suddenly unable to support me. "So this is my life now? People dying because I exist? People die in my world regardless." His voice was gentle but honest. "The difference is, now they die protecting you instead of threatening you. I won't apologize for that. My mother was right to run," I whispered. "This isn't a life. It's a war zone." "Yes." His agreement surprised me. She was right. She was smart and brave, and she did what she had to do to keep you safe. But Elena, look at what that cost her. Look at what that cost you both. A lifetime of poverty, struggle, fear, her working herself to death. You with 3 jobs just to survive. Is that really better than this? At least she had her soul intact." The words burst out before I could stop them. "She didn't have blood on her hands. She didn't kill people. She loved a man who did." Domenico's interruption was quiet, but firm. "She knew what I was, Elena. She knew, and she loved me anyway. For 6 months, she lived in this world, understood its rules, accepted its violence. What do you think we talked about during those nights? I didn't hide what I did from her. I couldn't, and she stayed anyway, until staying became more dangerous than running. The truth of it settled over me like a shroud. My mother, sweet, gentle, moral my mother, had loved a monster, had understood the darkness and chosen him anyway. What did that say about her? What did that say about me, sitting here across from him, not running, not screaming, just listening? "I need air," I said abruptly, standing. "I can't breathe in here." Domenico rose immediately. "I'll take you to the garden. It's secure, private. You'll be safe there." "Will I?" I laughed bitterly. "Victor found out about me in less than 24 hours. How long before someone else does? How many more people will you have to kill to keep me safe?" "As many as it takes." His answer was immediate, uncompromising. "Elena, I've spent 24 years without you, without knowing you existed. Now that I have you, now that I know you're mine, I will not lose you. Not to rivals, not to threats, not to your fear of what I am. You can hate me for it. You can rage against it, but you will be protected." The possessiveness in his voice should have repulsed me. Instead, something twisted in my chest. A dark, desperate need for exactly that protection, that certainty, that absolute dedication. What was wrong with me? He led me through corridors I didn't recognize, upstairs, through doors that required codes and biometric scans. The security was suffocating, omnipresent. Finally, we emerged into a glass-enclosed conservatory, lush with plants and flowers, humid and green and blessedly alive. I walked to the center, letting the vegetation surround me, trying to find calm in the growing things. Domenico remained at the entrance, giving me space, but his presence was a physical weight even at a distance. "I want to visit her grave," I said suddenly. "My mother. I haven't been able to go since the funeral. I need to tell her I found you, that I understand now why she ran, that I forgive her for not telling me." "Tomorrow," Domenico said immediately. "I'll take you myself. We'll go early, before the cemetery opens to the public. You'll have privacy." I turned to face him, this complicated man who was my father. "You loved her that much? Even after 24 years? "More." His voice was raw. "Every year without her, I loved her more. Every dead end, every false lead, every moment of hope crushed, it just made her more precious. She was the one thing in my life that was pure, Elena, the one thing I didn't corrupt with violence and blood money. And she left me, and I never understood why until yesterday. Until you." "I'm not her," I said softly. "I'm not going to be her replacement, Domenico. I can't be. I don't want you to be." He moved closer, cautious, giving me time to retreat if I wanted. "I want you to be exactly who you are, my daughter, Caterina's legacy, the proof that something good came from all of this darkness. Even if I can't accept this world, even if I can't become like you, you don't have to become like me." His hand touched my shoulder lightly. "You just have to let me protect you. Let me give you opportunities she never had. Education, security, a future that doesn't involve working yourself to death. That's all I ask. The rest, who you become, what you choose, that's yours to decide." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that I could exist in this world without being stained by it. But I'd seen the blood, heard the gunshots, watched him execute a man without flinching. "I'll try," I whispered finally. "For the month I promised, I'll try to understand, to accept. But I can't guarantee I won't hate you by the end of it. That's all I can ask." He pulled me into an embrace, and this time I didn't stiffen against it. His arms were strong, protective, and for just a moment, I let myself believe that maybe this could work. That maybe I could be Domenico Castellano's daughter without losing myself completely. But as I stood there in his arms, surrounded by beauty built on blood money, I couldn't help wondering how many more people would die before this month was over, and when it ended, would I even recognize the person I'd become? The cemetery was quiet in the pre-dawn darkness, headstones casting long shadows under the pale moon. Domenico had been true to his word. We arrived before the gates officially opened, his security team creating a perimeter that gave us privacy while maintaining protection. My mother's grave was simple. I'd only been able to afford a modest marker, her name and dates carved into granite that already showed signs of weathering. Fresh flowers appeared weekly. I'd assumed they were from the funeral home's package deal. Now I wondered if Domenico had been leaving them, honoring a woman he'd lost decades ago. I knelt on the damp grass, my fingers tracing her name, Catherine Morrison. She'd anglicized it, buried her Italian heritage along with her past. Another sacrifice for my safety. "Hi, Mama," I whispered. "I found him. Or he found me, I guess. You were right to run, about everything. But I wish you'd told me. I wish I'd known." Domenico stood several feet away, his hands in his coat pockets, his expression unreadable. He'd been silent during the drive, respecting my grief, my need for space. Now he watched me with an intensity that felt like prayer. "He's here," I continued, my voice breaking. "My father. He's complicated, dangerous. Exactly what you were protecting me from. But Mama, he loved you. He never stopped. 24 years, and he still keeps your picture on his desk. He still has your dress, your books, everything. He never let you go." A sob worked its way up my throat. "I'm so angry at you for dying, for leaving me alone. for never telling me the truth, but I understand now. I understand why you made the choices you did. And the words stuck, but I forced them out. I forgive you. For all of it. Strong hands touched my shoulders. Domenico, kneeling beside me on the wet grass, his expensive suit forgotten. His presence was solid, grounding, and when he pulled me against his chest, I let the grief pour out. For my mother, for lost time, for the impossible situation we'd all been trapped in. I'm sorry, amore mio, Domenico whispered. And it took me a moment to realize he wasn't speaking to me. He was speaking to her. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. Sorry you had to run. Sorry you died alone, thinking I'd forgotten you. But I swear on everything holy, I'll protect our daughter. I'll give her everything you wanted for her. She'll never struggle, never fear, never want for anything. This I promise you. His voice cracked on the last words, and I realized he was crying. Silent tears tracking down his face. His grief as raw as mine. We stayed like that as the sun rose. Two broken people united by love for the woman resting beneath the earth. When we finally stood, something had shifted between us, an understanding. Fragile, but real. Thank you, I said quietly. For bringing me here, for everything you said to her. I meant every word. He cupped my face gently, his thumbs wiping away my tears. You're all I have left of her, Elena. The best parts of both of us. I won't fail you the way I failed her. The drive back was quiet, but companionable. I watched Connecticut roll past the bulletproof windows, processing everything that had happened in the past 48 hours. My entire life had been upended, rebuilt, transformed into something I barely recognized. But maybe that wasn't entirely bad. Back at the mansion, Lucia met us with news that made Domenico's expression harden. The leak was internal, she said quietly, her eyes apologetic. One of the newer guards. Victor had been paying him for months for information. Marco is handling it. Handling it meant execution. I understood that now. The guard had betrayed the family, endangered me, and the price for that was death. No trials, no second chances. Just swift, brutal justice. I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt only a cold satisfaction that the threat had been eliminated. What was I becoming? Over the following weeks, a routine established itself. Mornings with Domenico, breakfast on the terrace, discussions about my future, stories about my mother. He was patient, never pushing too hard, letting me set the pace. Afternoons I spent in the library, devouring books, or with Lucia learning about the household, the family history, the intricate web of alliances and enmities that defined this world. Evenings were for education of a different kind. Domenico introduced me to his legitimate businesses, real estate, restaurants, import companies, the surface layer that funded the empire. He never explicitly discussed the illegal operations, but I learned to read between lines, to understand what wasn't said. I also learned to shoot. You need to be able to protect yourself, Domenico had insisted, leading me to the mansion's private range. I'll always have people watching you, but you should know how to defend yourself if needed. The weight of the gun in my hand felt wrong and right simultaneously. The instructor, a woman named Sophia with patient eyes and steady hands, taught me stance, aim, breath control. By the end of the week, I could hit center mass consistently. My mother would have been horrified. I tried not to think about that too much. The month mark approached with startling speed. True to his word, Domenico never mentioned my deadline, never pressured me about staying. But I felt it hovering between us, the unspoken question. What would I choose? 3 days before the deadline, everything changed. I was in the library when Marco appeared, his expression grim. Miss Morrison, we have a situation. There's someone at the gate claiming to know you. Says his name is David. David. My heart stopped. David Chen, my ex-boyfriend from college. We'd dated for 8 months before my mother got sick, and I dropped out to care for her. He'd been angry when I'd ended things, unable to understand why I wouldn't let him help, why I'd pushed him away. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year. How did he find me? I asked, already knowing the answer would be bad. Unknown. But Miss Morrison, He's not alone. There are 3 other men with him, and they're armed. Ice flooded my veins. It's a trap. Yes. Marco's hand went to his weapon. The boss is already mobilizing, but he wanted me to bring you to him first. I found Domenico in his study, surrounded by monitors showing the gate's camera feeds. David stood there, looking nervous and out of place, flanked by 3 hard-looking men who were definitely not his friends. They threatened him, Domenico said without preamble, probably his family too. Forced him to lure you out, or lead them to you. The Bratva, Russian mob. Victor's people, seeking revenge. They'll kill him. I stared at David's familiar face, guilt churning in my stomach. Because of me. Yes. Domenico's voice was flat. Unless we eliminate the threat first. There has to be another way. There isn't. He turned to me, his expression hard but not unkind. This is what I told you, Elena. People die in my world. People you know. People you care about. They become collateral damage because of who you are, who I am. This is the price. I looked back at the screen. David was terrified. I could see it in the tight set of his shoulders, the way his eyes darted around. He'd been a good person once, kind, gentle, everything Domenico wasn't, and now he was going to die because he'd once been connected to me. Let me talk to him, I said suddenly. Let me go out there. Absolutely not. Domenico's refusal was immediate. It's obviously a trap. I know it's a trap, I faced him, my decision crystallizing with sudden clarity. But I can use that. They want me, right? To use against you. So let them think they have a chance. Let them get close enough that your men can take them out without hurting David. You're asking me to use you as bait. His voice was deadly quiet. To risk my daughter to save your ex-boyfriend. I'm asking you to let me save an innocent person. I moved closer, urgency thrumming through my veins. You have, 20 armed men here? Snipers, security, every advantage? You can protect me, but only if I give you the opportunity. No. He turned away, jaw clenched. I won't risk you, not for anyone. Then you've already failed. The words stopped him cold. You promised me I could be who I am. That I wouldn't have to become like you. But if I let David die without trying to save him, then I'm already corrupted. I'm already the person this world creates. Is that what you want? The silence stretched between us, taut with tension. Finally, Domenico turned back, and the look in his eyes was complex. Pride, fear, resignation. You have your mother's courage, he said quietly, and her stubbornness. It's going to get you killed someday, but not today. I tried to sound confident, not with you protecting me. He studied me for a long moment, then spoke into his radio with clipped efficiency. All teams, we're running the honey trap protocol. The package is going to make contact. I want full coverage, non-lethal force only for the civilian. Take out the Bratva operatives the moment they make their move. Am I clear? A chorus of confirmations came through. Domenico turned to me, his hands gripping my shoulders. You wear a vest. You stay in the open where my snipers can see you. The moment anything goes wrong, you drop and let my people handle it. Understood? I nodded, trying to ignore the fear threatening to paralyze me. 10 minutes later, I walked through the mansion's front gate. A bulletproof vest hidden under my jacket, a dozen invisible weapons trained on the men threatening David. Elena. David's relief was palpable and heartbreaking. Thank God, I was worried they wouldn't let me. It's okay, David. I kept my voice calm, my eyes on him, rather than the men flanking him. Everything's going to be okay. One of the Bratva men stepped forward, his accent thick. You come with us, quietly, or your friend dies first. I don't think so. I stood my ground, channeling every ounce of Domenico's cold authority. You've made a mistake coming here. You should leave while you still can. The man laughed, raising his weapon. Big words for... 3 shots rang out simultaneously. All 3 Bratva operatives dropped, holes blooming in their foreheads. Perfect kills, instant and efficient. David screamed, stumbling backward. I rushed to him, gripping his arms before he could collapse. It's okay, I repeated, though my hands were shaking. You're safe now. Domenico's men materialized from nowhere, securing the bodies, checking for additional threats. Marco approached David with surprising gentleness. Sir, we need to take you inside. Make sure you're not injured. Get a statement about who threatened you and how. David stared at me with wide, terrified eyes. Elena, what the hell is going on? Who are these people? Who are you? I looked past him to where Domenico stood in the doorway, watching with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pride? Concern? Acceptance? I'm exactly who I've always been, David, I said quietly. I'm just finally in a position where I can protect the people I care about. Go with Marco. He'll make sure you and your family are safe. That no one ever threatens you again. As Marco led him away, Domenico approached, his movements deliberate. He stopped in front of me, his hands coming up to cup my face. That was reckless, he said softly. I learned from the best. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You've made your choice then, about staying. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes, I'm not leaving. Not because I'm scared to, not because I don't have options, but because this is my family now. You're my father. And I understand finally what my mother understood, that loving someone means accepting all of them. The darkness and the light, the violence and the protection, all of it. You're sure? His voice was rough with emotion. Once you commit to this life, there's no going back. You'll be a Castellano in truth, with everything that means. I'm already a Castellano. I place my hands over his. I have been since the day I was born. I just didn't know it yet. He pulled me into his arms, holding me with fierce tenderness. Then welcome home, filia mia. Welcome to the family. Standing there in my father's embrace, surrounded by guards and weapons and the evidence of violence, I finally understood my mother's choice. Not just why she'd run, but why she'd loved him in the first place. Because underneath the monster was a man who loved completely, protected absolutely, and would burn the world down for the people he called family. And I was his daughter in every sense that mattered. The fairy tale had a dark ending after all. But it was mine, and I chose it freely. Sometimes the princess doesn't need saving from the monster. Sometimes she becomes his legacy instead.